The face of Europe is changing. Anxiety is proclaimed in bold colours. The contrast between nations has sharpened and demands of battered economies test the limits of solidarity. Instability, real and perceived, is compelling the construction of Europe 3.0. If it's not delivered soon, populism will push past the limits of the European Union's current framework. Without greater flexibility, Europe risks splitting and spinning off its member states into splendid isolation or into old spheres of influence. At a recent European summit in Malta, German Chancellor Angela Merkel spoke of the need for a European Union with different speeds. She wasn't alone. In the same week, Italy's former Prime Minister Enrico Letta penned an article saying that the anniversary summit on the 25th of March, celebrating 60 years of the Treaty of Rome, was a moment to set out a new vision. Just before the Rome summit, Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May is expected to trigger the now legendary Article 50, the official starting pistol for Britain's exit from the European Union. Regardless of whether the UK had voted to remain or leave the EU, change was already on the cards, and the question is as much a matter of deconstruction as construction. Is it necessary to tear down some structures to make way for a new Europe?
My President is currently preparing a white paper on the future of Europe in the run-up to the Rome summit in March. The Brok report rightly points to the significant untapped potential within the existing framework, such as further reform to the institutional structure of the Economic and Monetary Union.
The Union doesn't deliver anymore. It's always too little, too late. And that is, in my opinion, the reason why many people and many citizens are angry in Europe. They are not against Europe, they are against a Union that doesn't deliver the right results.
The Verhofstadt report has a farther horizon, and most of its proposals would require treaty change.
The North-South divide, the East-West divide, the dominance of Germany, the centralising tendencies of the European Union, the migration crisis, the Eurozone crisis, youth unemployment crisis, all these dynamics and more are demanding a reorganisation of the European Union. Some argue that this is a natural process by which Europe must evolve. Others see Europe 3.0 as the last chance for the European project to work before populists tear it apart. The arenas which best highlight the pressing need for a two-speed Europe are the Eurozone and security.
The idea of two-speed Europe is much more than the Eurozone. Nevertheless, and as we are celebrating 25 years of Maastricht Treaty, nevertheless, it was aggravated with the Eurozone because of the architecture of the currency, which reinforced the fact that we have very different level of economies that they were not able to merge. And I think that has to do a lot with the rules of the euro. By that, I don't mean that we should exit the euro. I mean that, of course, it should be highly and deeply reformed.
Ça fait 20 ans que nous voyons bien les limites de ce pacte. Et ce que nous proposons avec ce budget de la zone euro, c'est simplement d'équiper les pays membres de la zone pour faire de leur monnaie ce qui leur a été promis au premier jour, en permettant une convergence entre ces économies, en permettant de remettre en place des mécanismes d'ajustement au choc asymétrique.
If the Eurozone gets its own finance minister, how will the institutions need to adapt? Would a new European Parliament be needed?
I think we could reorganize the European Parliament where we have, let's say, subcommittees on the Eurozone, subcommittee on defense, where the main decisions are done. And then by the treaty we are representatives of union citizens and not only of the citizens of our home countries. So we represent as elected MEPs the whole of the EU. And therefore, I would say we could do the job and we don't need separate chambers for every question.
Wir wollen die einheitlichen Gemeinschaftsinstitutionen zuständig sein für alles und nicht in der Eurogruppe wieder eine neue Administration zu schaffen. Und ich bin dagegen, eine Teilung zu haben zwischen Euro-Ländern und Nicht-Euro-Ländern. Besser gesagt, noch Nicht-Euro-Ländern.
Our general line is that we want to avoid creating new agencies and new overhead. So if possible, we would prefer that it's integrated into the existing systems. If we are adding a new body, we were essentially making a more complex Europe, and it's already complex enough.
The redrawing of Europe's intellectual blueprint doesn't end with security and the Eurozone. Poland's Law and Justice Party is just one example of a governing party deeply uneasy with Europe's liberal establishment. Merkel's Valletta nod to the need for flexibility, a union of variable speeds, seems on the face of it at least as an attempt to insist on fundamental European values, while at the same time taking note of national cultural differences, especially, though not exclusively, in the east of the European Union.
Do you think it's a new moment of real opportunity for Europe to define itself in terms of good values as enshrined within the treaties?
It could be a good opportunity for Europe, and I wish I could believe that it would be used. But unfortunately, what I'm seeing is more an isolation process rather than regain a position to cooperate around the world with all the different regions and the different powers. So I'm afraid that we are working for being an island, and it doesn't work for sure.
Just last week, Chatham House, the reputable group, published a massive survey from 10 European member states, and only 20% of people want immigration from Muslim countries to continue. Just 20% want us to keep on allowing people in from Muslim countries, which means your voters have a harder line position on this than Donald Trump or myself or frankly any party sitting in this parliament.
The mass movement towards the EU is a shock for the EU, like the financial crisis was 9 years ago. Not prepared, not enough capacities, not enough rules to manage those shocks in common. Maybe that's the lesson that we have with such a really innovative animal like European Union, that we have no blueprint how to do it, but we have to do it better. That's for sure. And I hope we are learning from past mistakes to be quicker, more efficient, and satisfy more the hopes of our citizens.
But at the end of the day, all of this is about people. Too many people in our union have been left behind. And so the social dimension, with a European pillar of social rights, must become more and more important in strengthening the economic and monetary union.
This week, the European Parliament debated the future of Europe and the need for institutional change. With France and Germany moving towards deeper military ties, is the European army inevitable?
Our role should be the one of promoting peace, not of creating additional elements for war. We will not be able to construct anything together if it is all based on fear. Fear never constructs anything, and all the new directions of the European policy are fear-based. So I don't see the point. I think we should work more for cooperation, but not for a joint or a common army.
And then there's Brexit. With Europe truly reforming, could the UK be tempted to finally reject Brexit and find a compromise within a two-speed Europe?
The UK is leaving the EU because, in fact, they're not flexible enough. The more flexibility could be the answers to the problems of the EU if we want to see the EU continue.
I don't know what will be done after the Brexit, with the negotiation of the Brexit, if it will be used as an opportunity to revise the treaties or not, in dimensions that are not working. But with these treaties, it's really difficult to manage, especially because they are not applied in a linear way. It means that some of the areas of the treaties are over-applied and the others are not even touched.
Now, the flexibility is existing. Unfortunately, it's not recognized that you could have, let's say, an opt-out as Britain head of the Schengen area, of the Euro, of some home and justice affairs. So the flexibility is already incorporated in the European treaties, but there was such a focus on immigration and getting rid of the European Court of Justice. So unfortunately we lost that battle, but maybe the day will come when they come back.
Europe looks set for two tracks, two speeds, a formalization of a structure which already exists. But will it be enough? Can the European Union bridge a perceived democratic deficit? Can it increase the legitimacy of the European demos? Or is Europe's two-speed solution a mirage in the sunlight with two trains at two speeds on two tracks, but the trains going in different directions?